So I'm going to talk a little bit about Accenture. Hopefully most people know who Accenture is, but not to have a commercial, but in case you don't. We are a management consulting technology and outsourcing company. Pretty big company, $25.5 billion in revenue last year. Nearly 250,000 employees, so a little difficult to navigate at times. That number changes daily, so we're probably closer to 250 by now. We have offices and operations in many locations across the world, and we're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Client-wise, our services and solutions are across 5 operating groups, and as you can see, client-wise, we have 92 in the Fortune Global 100. So enough about the Accenture commercial. This slide just shows where our supplier diversity organization sits. So while Accenture was doing some things in supplier diversity, we actually formally launched our program in 2002. My director, Ray Toomer, and I report up through the Global Procurement Organization to Al Williams, our Chief Procurement Officer. And the other items just kind of show what is included in our supplier diversity program. So Tier 1 is where we track and measure the spend we have with our diverse suppliers in the U.S. We have a Tier 2 program where we ask a selection of our prime suppliers to report their diversity metrics back to us. We do have some contract language as well, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm highlighting in blue the Diverse Supplier Development Program. That's going to be the meat of my discussion today, which is our formal mentoring program, and I'll get to that in greater detail. Client team assistance. Many of our large clients have very robust supplier diversity programs, and they expect us to do the same, and so we report back to them what our metrics are, and we have to, at times, have hard goals that we have to meet in our client agreements, where we say we will utilize diversity suppliers for a certain percentage of the revenue we get with those clients. And so our team handles all of those requests. Alignment with the procurement process. We have our sourcing managers are actually held responsible in their performance evaluations for including diverse suppliers in our larger procurement offerings. Corporate memberships, I will talk about that in a couple of slides where we have involvement. And a little bit on global expansion, and then we manage most of our program through technology that happens to be provided by CVM, and we call that our supplier portal. So this highlights a few of our U.S. and global program initiatives. So for spend metrics in the U.S., last year we spent nearly 23% of our U.S. procurement spend with diverse suppliers, and that does include small business. Mentoring and capacity building, again, this is one of the things that we think sets our program apart from others. It's our formal mentoring program, which I will talk in great detail about in a few minutes. Again, talked about the procurement process. We do have some contract language in our procurement agreements and RFPs that go out. And last year, we were actually hired by the National Minority Supplier Development Council, or NMSDC, to create their 5-year strategic plan. Sort of an exciting hire for us because there was a new president, Josette Wright, that came into the NMSDC, and they had not had a strategic plan in place for quite a while, and Josette was very eager to get one in place, and basically did a sole source to have Accenture create that plan, and they're now working on the implementation of that. Globally, with focus on mentoring and capacity building, we are expanding into Canada, India, and the UK, and we will plan to go into other geographies after that. And as Ashley mentioned, we're very excited this year. Not only have we moved up on the Diversity Inc. top 50 companies for overall diversity, but we were for the first time recognized in their top 10 for supplier diversity. So we're very proud of that. This slide, while it's a very busy one, the point here is we are very involved with many of the supplier diversity organizations, and over and above just writing a check and putting our name on a member list, many of our executives sit on boards and advisory councils. It really keeps us in tune with what's going on in the supplier diversity arena. We have a lot of global memberships as well. So what I really want to focus on today is where I think supplier diversity is headed over and above tracking your spend metrics with diverse suppliers and increasing your spend with diverse suppliers, is actually developing and building the capacity of those suppliers. So we launched a program in 2006 called the Diverse Supplier Development Program, or DSDP. Everything's got to have an acronym at Accenture. And I don't know all of them, trust me. So in this program, we go through a selection process with our suppliers. We sent out an RFI we're in the third class now, and we sent out an RFI, and we went through an elaborate scoring process. I think we had about 100 suppliers apply, and we selected 24 of those suppliers. Then we also went through a recruiting process for our senior executives. So all of our mentors at this point are senior executive levels at Accenture, and we match the two. We go through a matching process where we ask what the skills and subject matter expertise of our executive mentors are, and then we ask what the developmental needs are for our suppliers. And we do the best we can to have that be a good match. The program not only offers that one-on-one mentor-protege relationship, but we also hold quarterly training meetings where it's usually about a day and a half to 2 days. And the participation level for the protege companies has to be, it's required that they have either the owner levels or the senior executive levels there. So that's one of the things we ask them in the screening process is, can you guarantee that you can have that level of ownership or leadership present at those meetings? So as I mentioned, we kicked off this program in 2006 with 10 suppliers. It's an 18-month program. And while the formal structure of the program runs 18 months, we do encourage those mentor and protege relationships to continue on after that informally. Our second class was kicked off in January of 2009, and we had 16 companies. And we're, as I mentioned, in our third class now. We are looking to graduate them later this year in October, and we grew to 24 companies. And the really interesting thing about this program and how it's really caught on internally and externally is that I remember when we launched it in 2006, and our director at the time pulled every string and favor she could to beg these executives to be our mentors in the program. And now we've gotten to the point where they're actually coming to us and say that, you know, they've heard about it and they want to participate. For the first time last year when we were going through our mentor recruiting process, the lead in North American Management Consulting had heard about it, and he sent out a communication to his entire team of senior executives, which I think was hundreds of people. And we had about 45 people raise their hands. We were hoping to get 3 to 5, and we got 45. So we said, oh boy, what do we do now? So we didn't want to lose that momentum. So what we did was we decided to have 2 executive mentors per protege company. So that's kind of a new trial and error thing for us, but it seems to be working very well because now we have typically 1 from management consulting and 1 from internal operations. So, you know, 2 different sets of skills that can be provided to those protege companies. We've also expanded in Canada. I'm happy to announce that just earlier this week, our Canadian team kicked off their second class, so a lot of success there as well. So this slide shows some of the objectives. So generally speaking, you know, it's a win-win for both Accenture and the protege company. So not only are we building these businesses to be high-performance businesses so they can better serve us, but, you know, they can better serve all of their clients, but we're also getting a deeper knowledge of what they do and learning about their businesses over and above when you go to a trade show and, you know, you have 5 minutes to talk to somebody at a booth. It helps us really learn about their capabilities and then get them connected with the right business folks at Accenture. And while there's no guarantee that they're going to get more business, everybody hopes that they do in the end. And then for the protege companies, obviously they're developing their skills, their capabilities, helping them to navigate a company that is as large as Accenture, which is difficult for even those of us that are in it. And then one of the things that we've really been focusing on, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the protégés, is we've been developing exercises in our quarterly meetings that helps them explore ways that they can collaborate with one another. Now, it's a little difficult in the beginning until they get to know each other and develop that camaraderie, because a lot of them are competitors to each other. So we sort of force them into it, and they're sometimes reluctant, but they love us for it in the end. And we've got a few success stories that I'll share where they have actually been surprised themselves that once they opened up the lines of communication, they found ways that they could partner with each other and maybe going after bigger business that they couldn't individually. So that's very exciting to see as well. This talks about the program structure a little bit. So we have some documentation. We make sure they all sign an NDA. Some of the suppliers are doing business with us today. Some of them come into the program and have never done business with us, so we have to make sure that we have non-disclosure agreements signed. We have a participation agreement, which, while not legally binding, it sort of lays out the expectations of both sides, just to put that in black and white. We also have the protégés provide bi-monthly status reports so that they can tell us what's working, what's not working, what progress have they worked on with their mentor. And we try to stay on top of that so that through that 18 months, if there are any issues, we can get them, right away and address those. We also ask for feedback from the executive mentors, and while it's difficult to get that many senior executives at Accenture on the phone at once, we try to solicit their feedback continually as well. And as I mentioned, we have our quarterly in-person meetings that are a day and a half to 2 days. Typically, we bring in experts from the business internally to talk about various topics, which many of them are listed here. We also solicit feedback through evaluation forms to find out if there's something that we haven't addressed, what do they want to learn about and hear about, and we try to accommodate that as much as we can. We have a scorecarding process where we provide them continual feedback as well as their mentors on, how are they doing? Are they engaged? Are they available? Are they showing up? And are they turning in their status reports and things like that? So we try to make sure we're always measuring and providing that feedback so we can continue to better the program. A couple success stories. Two of our protégé companies from 2 different classes actually met up at a conference, and they partnered on a deal that started out as a $500,000 deal. And I was actually at a conference sitting with them when they got the call that they won this deal with a big bank, actually. And they did such a good job in this training implementation that the $500,000 deal turned into a $2.5 million deal. So while it may have not a direct impact from the mentoring program, it's very exciting to see that they partnered and they've had such great success with that. We also had another recent protégé company bidding on a very large contract with a resources client, and if they win that business, they have let us know that they are going to partner with another one of the protégé companies, and they're actually in our current class today. Also, we call on our graduates from our previous classes to come back and share best practices with the current class. We just recently had a symposium where we had an M&A panel, and there were a lot of inquiries and follow-up meetings after that. We also had a graduate panel to provide very candid feedback to the current class on how they can best leverage that knowledge capital they're getting in those mentor-protégé relationships during that course of the program. Here's some photos of some of our graduating classes. I don't know how we're going to fit the 24 in the next one. Good. Any questions?
I guess as a sourcing professional, there's a goal to consolidate suppliers, and then there's a goal to increase spend with diverse suppliers. How do you manage those conflicting goals, per se, and have you experienced that?
That's always a big question, isn't it? One of the things that we're focusing on now, we just recently started reporting up to our Chief Procurement Officer. Supplier Diversity actually sat in the procurement business processing unit, and so we were sitting in the same organization as the sourcing folks. But we had a little bit of a switch, so now in our global procurement organization, where we are actually the client to the sourcing folks that sit in the BPO. And our CPO has sort of tasked us with looking, we're doing a lot of great things externally, and he said, but now we need to start focusing more internally, because, now we sort of have our name out there in the marketplace in supplier diversity, so let's sort of clean house and see what else we can improve internally. And one of the things that he's having us do is go out to all of what we call GCDs, the global category directors, and start to pinpoint opportunities where we can identify where there are diverse suppliers, educate them. We all know there are categories that lend themselves to diverse suppliers more so than others. And so we're really starting a newer effort to look at those categories and find out where the strong diverse suppliers are and team up with those global category leads. So we're going to have those very discussions at a very case by case and category by category basis. So it is, it's always a challenge, but I think you have to really look at the category and see what's available to you and show that, it's not just about a quota or, having a diverse supplier on your spend report, but about what they can really provide.
I'll provide a percentage of how much you're spending with diverse suppliers or the dollar value?
Yeah, so last year we were nearly 23% of our total U.S. procurement spend with diverse suppliers, and that does include small business. Many companies count things differently. We track most categories, including small, and for us that was about $409 million. Our total U.S. procurement spend is just under $2 billion.
And how are you defining diverse suppliers?
Well, we have, there's the standard definition of whatever category you're speaking of. It has to be 51% owned and operated, the day-to-day operations. We track minority-owned, women-owned, veteran, service-disabled veteran, LGBT, and small business. And we are able to track both certified and classified. We do break it out, so we do give an overall number, and then we say this much is certified, this much is classified. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. So what we're doing right now in the UK and India is focusing on, we have a partnership with WeConnect. I don't know if you're familiar with WeConnect, but think of it as the global version of WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. So they're rolling out in different geographies where they're certifying women-owned businesses. So obviously a woman is a woman no matter what country you're in, but as you talk about ethnic minorities, that means something different in every country. So there's been a lot more progress with, the gender diversity. So that's where we're focused now. In Canada, it's a little bit different. There's some laws where you are not able to ask a supplier what their ethnic background is, but if they are certified by CAMSI, which is Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier Council, you can ask if they're certified by them, and you know that they've gone through a certification process to show that they are a minority in Canada. Ethnic diversity, we are not doing anything in the UK yet. It's the women-owned businesses for now. Same in India.
I would guess that you're working in the different industries, given your, global 260,000 employees that you're talking about. Are there certain segments that you find are more focused and more rigid about diversity? And are there certain thresholds for a certain extent that
Do you mean, are there focus areas across industry where there there are more diverse suppliers in that industry?
No, where the actual companies decide really. So let's say, could banking be an area where they're more committed to diversity as opposed to Accenture?
So meaning like we're a management consulting company versus a banking company might be focused in other areas. Yeah, I think it does depend on what your industry is. For us, it's, we buy people mostly, so it's contingent labor and IT staffing for us is a big focus. But, in insurance and banking, it's going to be a lot different than that. So yes, it does differ across the board. And again, for us, contingent labor, there are many very qualified diverse suppliers in that space, so that's where we have the most spend and the most diverse spend.
Can you explain what CBN is doing to help you with your diversity?
Did they pay you to say that? Just checking. Since you asked, I'll say no. I know. They're actually, so they do our data enrichment, so they take our payables data and scrub it, and they, give us a result on an annual basis that says, of all the tens of thousands of suppliers you're paying through our payable system, these are the ones that are diverse, these are their certifications, these are the categories they fall under. And many suppliers can have multiple categories they fall under in certifications. So that's one thing they do. And then they host our supplier portal, which I do all my spend reporting out of. I manage our Tier 2 program where we ask some of our prime suppliers to report their diverse spend to us. We have a federal reporting module that we use for our federal team reports data differently. And what else do you guys do, Ashley?
Registration.
Thank you. Supplier registration. So when we go to conferences and suppliers want to know how to do business with us, the first thing we tell them is make sure you're registered in our supplier portal. Doesn't guarantee business, but that's how we can get your information out to the sourcing folks. So once they complete that profile and they get a login and a password, they can log in anytime, and then that becomes a sourcing database for our buyers, and they can go in and search on many different fields to find suppliers to reach out to. Yes, Ashley?
So, obviously Accenture is a very well-known, strategic consulting. Have you guys ever thought about taking this mentor-protege program and offering it as something that you will go to some of the other, Fortune 500 corporations and coaching them how to do this?
We are actually starting to see some demand for that. So it has come up a couple times. We are having discussions with different folks in different areas of our consulting business to see if that would be a good service offering. And we continue to go to them and show them examples. We have to make sure there's a demand for it. And so that is increasing. Personally, I hope we do, because I think that we have a good program, and, right now we're just sort of ad hoc sharing information with some of our clients that ask, but I think we may go down that road, but I'm not sure yet.
Are you able to quantify the diversity program, or are there follow-up metrics that you
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Do you quantify the benefit of the diversity program, or are there follow-up metrics that you need?
Well, we maintain sort of the basic metrics, the breakdown of diverse category and the dollars that we spend on an annual basis, and what percentage of our procurement dollars. The other more tangible items are a little bit harder to quantify. We try to quantify how it also impacts our client business, and we're trying to put into place some better metrics for our mentoring program to show more success stories, and quantitatively more so than qualitatively. So we're working to improve that, but that's what we track today.
I've got a question. I think, for your programs, diversity programs, it's more of a policy about evolution, in Tier 1, Tier 2, and getting to that next level of detail in terms of supplier development and implementation program. And from everything I've heard and know personally from CBS, it's a wonderful program. But what I saw in, one of the slides you had was one of the steps that you were taking was to put together an M&A seminar for some of your say, I guess graduates. And so I want to ask you, do you at this point see when a company graduates to the point where they have an M&A exit, where they're no longer diverse as part of a success of your mentor program? And I know that because the supplier diversity manager's worst nightmare, you know, the company that you're working with, sponsoring, all of a sudden goes, you know, the doors and some M&A transaction, but really when I look at what you're doing with your program, it looks like a successful conclusion. So I was wondering how do you balance that with your strategy?
I think you already kind of said it, Lois. It's mixed feelings. I mean, you're happy that they had that success, and I think a lot of people do go into business with the end result or end goal wanting to be bought out. It pains me a little bit on my spend reports, but at the same time, it's not just about the numbers. I mean, you can find other diverse suppliers to have spend with. I think we focus more on the development. So, you know, I think we're proud to see those success stories.
Do you publish that or communicate that within some of the committees that you serve on? And I know that you feel that people that are so active in the MSCC meetings and ULCC. I'm wondering if you find that philosophy shared or you kind of on the same edge?
I don't know. We've really sort of shared it informally. I haven't done a whole lot of benchmarking on that, so I'm not sure I can answer that very well. I see an arm up back there.
How do you ensure your assistant managers are actually taking advantage of the supplier diversity program in the space? If you have a threshold of 23% that you meet, how do you ensure that you're actually reaching out to those diverse suppliers and including them in the RFP?
Well, as I mentioned, we do have a greater focus in doing that now more. You know, as I mentioned, we're doing a lot of things externally, and under contingent labor, we work very closely with that team because we know that is where most of our success is. So when they go out to bid, we make sure that we are on the front end of that and that they're utilizing the supplier portal so that they have a pretty high percentage themselves in that category, and we want to make sure they continue to do that. Some of the other categories are more challenging, and that's where we have to really sit down and do a lot deeper analysis because maybe there aren't as many diverse suppliers in that space, or maybe the category leads in that space don't know as much about supplier diversity, so it's our job to educate them and to provide them with the tools to evaluate those suppliers and those opportunities.
Looking at kind of the internal ROI for supplier diversity, so you look at examining, say, cost savings that will arise from using different suppliers, or maybe on the sales side, from the client perspective, deals you won because of that. Have you seen a shift in the types of metrics that are becoming more relevant for you?
So we have, on the client side, it is a detailed process. At Accenture, we've tried to go up to the sales organization, and we're not quite able to do it effectively yet, where we can actually go out and say, for this client RFP, there was a supplier diversity section, and what was the weighting of the question, and did we win business because of supplier diversity? We're just not there because there's so many steps between us and the sales process. We do track for our internal advisory council, and we report out our progress quarterly, typically, where we say, you know, in our fiscal year, we had over 200 client inquiries internally, and that represented 90 clients, and that potential business was $5 billion. So we do track it at that level, but it's not much more granular than that yet. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.